Hi guys, so I know this is not the ideal video to start with on my booktube, but my first video which I planned out is taking way longer than I expected, and this video is already coming out really late compared to most people, so I just decided to do it anyway. I just want to state beforehand that most of these books that I'm showing is going to be on my iPad, like at least the book covers, because I do not have physical copies of the book because I am not rich enough to purchase every book that I want to read. I started out this year reading more books that were suggested on Bookstagram than BookTok, which is way more popular than Bookstagram nowadays. So I kicked 2021 off by reading The Memory Book by Lara Avery. I saw my friend actually recommend this on her Bookstagram, so I was interested and it sounded really interesting, but I did not like the main character. Then the next book I read was Eliza and Her Monsters by Francisca Zappia. I also saw this on my Bookstagram friends account, and I actually really did enjoy this. I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but I enjoyed it. Like, it was so original, having all the comics ingrained into this book too. It's a good read for both readers of comics and just normal book readers. Then I read A Million Miles Away by Lara Avery. I read this because I was searching for the memory book in the library and I found both this and the memory book, so I was just like, borrow it. Okay, then I read Everything by Nicola Yoon. I found this one very hilarious read. It's not supposed to be hilarious, but it was funny because it was so dumb. I'm sorry. In February, I read Girl in a Bad Place by Caitlin Ward. I never heard of this book anywhere. I was just looking around in the library and I was like, ooh, this seems like an interesting book. Turns out it was a book about a cult. I was so shocked. After the cult book, I read The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I fell in love with her when I first read her book If There's No Tomorrow, and my library only had like a few of her books available, so this was one of them, so I read it, and apparently it's actually decently popular. I think I've seen it on BookTube sometimes. I don't think it's as good as If There's No Tomorrow, but opinions. Then after that, I read The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I actually at first saw this at the library and I looked through it, but I was too scared to borrow it because it sounded very tragic. Then I started seeing it pop out everywhere, like Bookstagram, BookTube, I don't know, it's just everywhere now. So I decided to give it a go and I am traumatized. After that, I read Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone, and I also saw this on Bookstagram. I read it. It wasn't anything that gripped me hard, but the plot twist, if I remember it correctly, was really out of the blue and interesting. March was a very bad reading month because I only read Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I also heard so much about this on Bookstagram, BookTube, BookTok, and I did not enjoy it. It's supposed to be like cute academic rivals to lovers, but it's kind of, I think it's a teen fiction. Teen fiction romances are never ever good, at least to me. Like, they just lack so much chemistry. In April, my reading improved a little, just a little, not a lot. So I read When We Collided by Emery Lord. It's another Lord author. Funny story, I think I was actually looking for this book when I found Tweet Cute, so I was just like, okay, I'll just borrow both. After that, I read Hope and Other Punchlines by Julie Buxbaum. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But at first I saw one of her other books on Bookstagram. I think it was What to Say Next or Tell Me Three Things. It's one of those. I saw it on Bookstagram and I wanted to borrow, but they didn't have it available, so I just borrowed this one. And it's about 9/11 and like its after effects, how it affects people still after like years, and I found it really interesting. Then I read The Darkest Star by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was like kind of what got me more into romance, like cause Jennifer L. Armentrout is just so good at writing chemistry. Like they could just literally just be like saying something to each other and I'll just be like, oh my god, yes, yes. In May, I read Things I Should Have Known by Claire Lazibnik. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Then I read this book that I've seen literally everywhere, Bookstagram, BookTok, BookTube. It was so freaking popular. The Selection by Kiara Cass. Like, I had expected so much out of it. I was like hoping for more chemistry, everything, you know. But it kind of didn't live up to my expectations and I hated most of the characters. After that, I read This Heart of Mine by C.C. Hunter. Then in June, June was another really bad reading month. I read The Selection Stories, The Prince and the God by Kiara Cass. In July, which is my birthday month, I got a lot of books that month. I read To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han, Paperweight by Meg Heston, Midnight Sun by Trish Cook. I think this is a movie to book adaptation. Then I read one of the most hyped up mystery novel ever, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This book was okay, but Pip was too unlike a teenager to me. She was too brave, in my opinion, and too reckless. Then August. August was the start of me regaining my love for reading. Like, you see, before August, I only read like at most 5 books per month to 1 book per month. But August, everything changed because of 1 book, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I knew Jennifer L. Armentrout would be the one to bring me back into my love for reading because she's my favorite author already. After that, I read Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow because I was still kind of in my mental health phase. I honestly did not enjoy this book at all. I was hoping that I would because I heard so much about it, and like I was so into mental health at that time. This was the first book that I bought after years of not buying books, and I really love the cover. It's so pretty. I love it so much, but it was just really, really boring to read. Then I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It was more disappointing than From Blood and Ash. After that, I read The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is probably, as of right now, the most hated book in the series because people are complaining about poor editing, all those stuff. I can understand some of their points, but I was okay with it again. I did not spot any editing errors, or I'm just blind because I am. After I completed what there was of the Blood and Ash series, I wanted to read another series that was kind of similar, so I asked my friend Janelle for suggestions and she gave me the suggestion of A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. It's basically like a Persephone and Hades retelling. I was okay with this first book. It was decent, but the chemistry was not as good as from Blood and Ash, so just like nah. After that, I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stefan Chbosky. I hope I pronounced that right. And like people were saying how it's a modern classic and all stuff, and I was expecting so much out of it, but I did not enjoy it. Then I read A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. This book is where it starts getting bad. It starts getting more like 75% smut and 25% plot. Then in September, I read All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This was a book that I was considering to get with Girl in Pieces because they are kind of similar in some sense. So, but I got this one first because it's a second-hand book and in really well condition also. But I could not find a good condition, cheap All the Bright Places, but Janelle, my friend, got this for me for my birthday. I love how floppy it is, I would say. Then I read Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Okay, so the next one, I basically was talking to Janelle, my friend, and she was telling me about, oh my gosh, I want to read Punk 57 because it's so hot. And I was like, okay. Then I went on Book Talk and I saw a clip. You know how like Book Talk, they have those type of clips that are just like, oh my gosh guys, look at my beautiful nails, and they put their nails like right above a open book where it shows a sex scene. And one of those videos I saw was on Punk 57, and it was like the truck scene or something. You will understand if you read the book. But that was like the point for me when I wanted to read the book immediately. So I was just like, I'm gonna read the book now. So I read it and I do not regret it. I love it. Then after that, I read A Touch of Malice by Scarlett St. Clair. And this one starts to get to 80% smut and 20% plot. Then October. October was the start of when I was trying to make my first booktube video. So this next book that I read was actually from my first booktube video. It's The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I love this so much. I think I read this only in a matter of hours, but then it was like I started reading it at like midnight, so I had to stop reading it at some point so I could sleep. Then the next day I just finished it, and it's easily one of my favorite books of the year. Then I read Dear Evan Hansen by Val Emmich with Stephen Levinson and I don't know, some others. My friend got this book for me because I asked her to get it for me for my birthday. I wanted this book because like I started to be in the phase of my musical phase. I really like musicals, and Dear Evan Hansen was like the second musical I saw, and I really enjoyed it. So I found out there was a book on it, so I went to Google Books and I looked at the preview, and I really enjoyed it more than I expected, so I wanted to get this book, and it was pretty enjoyable. It was pretty good. Then I read Rage and Ruin by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It was meh compared to Storm and Fury. I still liked it, but it wasn't as exciting as Storm and Fury. But I did really like one part near the end. Like, I don't think it's a big spoiler, but basically main character is fighting against some evil person called the Harbinger, which is basically what the series type name is called, so that's not a spoiler. But then, like, I'm not gonna explain much, but there was another character there and they started discussing about how the Harbinger calls Instagram like picture book or something. And it was just in the middle of a battle and they were just like the enemy character was discussing with the main character about how dumb one of the enemy characters are for thinking Instagram is picture book. Then I finished the Harbinger series off with reading Grace and Glory, and I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I actually first learned this from Janelle, and I was interested in it because she just told me it was about some girl who committed suicide, and I was in my mental health phase and I was like, oh my god. Then I read The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie, the first book in the Maid series. Then immediately after that, I binge read the whole Maid series. So I read The Maddest Obsession, then I read The Darkest Temptation. Then November, I read The Deal by Elle Kennedy, the first book in the Off-Campus series. Then I read Twisted Love, oh my gosh. Then I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I thought this was her debut novel, but it's not. So that's on me. Then I wanted to read The Cruel Prince, but I couldn't get into it. So I read How the King of Elfham Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black, because I saw some stuff about it on Book Talk and I was like, oh my gosh. So I read it and yeah, I got deceived. Then after that, I read Twisted Games. I started reading Twisted Games by Anna Huang in the same day. And I finished Twisted Love at like midnight, I think. So that's a problem. But Twisted Games, I think it has to be amongst one of my favorite books of this year also. After that, I read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I also saw it on Book Talk and BookTube, and I was interested to read it because I haven't really read any Friends to Lovers, and I wanted to find a Friends to Lovers that I would actually like, because like my main thing with Friends to Lovers is sometimes it doesn't feel like there's much chemistry between them, because enemies to lovers provide more angst and tension, but Friends to Lovers not so much. So when I read this, I was pleasantly surprised because there was so much chemistry. This has been my favorite Friends to Lovers so far. And finally, I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It was meh. I sped through it. I don't know why it wasn't exactly that interesting, but I just sped through it, I guess. Then at this point, I started my Mariana Zapata phase. I read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. Then I read The Enemy by Sarah Adams. It's part of the duology. I think duology. It happened in Charleston. I read Luna and the Lie by Mariana Zapata. Then I read The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Adia. I read Cold Tea by Mariana Zapata. Then December, I read Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. My friend Damia suggested this to me, and at first I was like, okay. I because I never heard much of it. I never heard of it in my entire life, so I wasn't too keen on it. One day I was locked out of this iPad I'm using to read, so Ghosted was the only book that was available on my other iPad. So I read it there because I was bored as heck and I was kind of lazy to read my own books. So I ended up really loving it. It's probably one of my 5 stars of this year. One thing about this month is that it was a Tessa Bailey reading month and an Elle Kennedy kind of, because I started reading Tessa Bailey. It happened one summer. I read The Mistake by Elle Kennedy, The Score also by Elle Kennedy, and because it was during Christmas time, I decided to read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I read Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey, the first book in the Hot and Hammered series. In the ending of 2021, I read the second book in the Hot and Hammered series, Love Her or Lose Her. Honestly, I think this is my favorite book in the trilogy because Second Chance Romance is amazing, and it's not so much horniness overload like her other books, I guess. So yeah, that was all the books I read in 2021. I think it's 56, I believe. It's not the best number. I mean, I'm sure that I could improve on the number. Like maybe I could read 100 per year. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I will have to cut this down a lot because it's very long. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it enough to subscribe at least, to see my officially supposed to be first video of the booktube, of this booktube. So it will come out one day once I finish it. I'm very close to finishing it, but I'm putting it off a bit because I'm lazy. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.